Hi, this is Analytics, and welcome to another lesson. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts or questions in the comments. Let's get started. In this video, we're going to continue our study on data cleaning, and we are going to start where we left off in the last videos. If you haven't watched, go back to see all the procedures we conducted to get to the point we are now, and also to get familiar with the data sets and the files we are using for the examples in this class. This is a direct continuation of the last lesson. In the last video, we studied all of these buttons here on the Home tab, and we're going to continue using the split column button. And if you take a quick look at this second column right here, we have a lot of junk, and let's start splitting this column in two. If you take a careful look, you'll see that we have names for the countries and the respective continent. I want to separate the names of the countries and the names of the continents, and you can see that as a separator between the country and the continent, I have semicolons. So semicolons are my separator. I can use it as a separator, of course, and some of them I only have the country and the semicolon, and I don't have any name for the continent, but we'll take care of it later. Right now, we need to separate the name of the country and the name of the continent in different columns. And to do this, I'm going to use the split column button, and there's many different ways to split a column, and I'm going to start by the first one, which is by delimiter. And our separator or our delimiter is precisely the semicolon between words in each row. And I'm going to click by delimiter, and Power Query, most times it will find what is the right separator. But in case Power Query doesn't find the right separator, or maybe the separator is not so obvious, and to you want a different separator than the one Power Query found to be the right one, so all you have to do is just click the down arrow and choose a different separator. You could select the colon, comma, equal sign, semicolon, space, tab, so you can even customize your separator. And just for example, if your separator is an asterisk, you can pick the one you want. Okay, in this case, Power Query was right. Yes, my separator is a semicolon, and it is asking me if the separator that I'm wanting to use as the parameter for splitting the column, if it's the leftmost delimiter, in case I had more than one semicolon in each row. For example, if I had a separator here in the middle and another one here, in case I had more than only 3 or 2 words in each row, so I could have multiple separators in the same cell. So in this case, I have to tell Power Query if the separator I want to use is the one that is the leftmost delimiter, or to the contrary, if it's the rightmost delimiter, or if I want each occurrence of the delimiter to be a point to split columns. In this case, I believe I don't have any cell with more than one separator, so I will just use the each occurrence of the delimiter. It doesn't make any difference if it's the leftmost or the rightmost or each occurrence, because I only have one in each cell. I just wanted to be aware that if you have more than one separator, you can choose the one on the right or on the left, or each of them will be a column separator. Now I'll click OK, and now the column was split into 2 new columns. Of course, I haven't given the new column a name, or even the old one, and Power Query automatically would take the name, the column header that it had before, and only called it with the same name plus 1 and 2, only to show that these 2 columns were created based on the previous column that was also called location. So now you have column 1 and column 2, and you can see that automatically Power Query created a changed type step. And in this case, it is right. Both of the columns are really supposed to be text, but I will remove these last 2 steps because I want to show you other resources in the same split column button. I can also split the column by the number of characters. So for example, if I want to count 3 the characters and split the column only counting from left to right. So once I will split the column and the third character once as far left as possible. So it's going to count 3 from the left towards the right. One, for example, if you use as a reference this row right here, Australia, so it's going to count 3 characters, A, U, S, and then between S and T, you will have the separating point of your column. And let's do it. There you go. And it happened just the way I told you. Let's try another example. If I select by characters, by the number of characters, and again, let's make it 4, but now I want to count backwards. I want to count starting on the right and counting backwards. So the semicolon is going to be the first character, A, the second, L, third, A will be the fourth. So between R and A is where the column will be split. Let's try it out. Okay, that's just as we expected. And again, by number of characters, if I keep the default, which is repeatedly, and if I require 3 as the number of characters to split the columns, so it will split the columns at every third character. Let's try it. Okay, so you will be left with 3 characters in the first, 3 in the second, and until you have no more characters to use. And you can see that now Power Query created 10 new columns, because in United States, North America had a lot of characters. So when it split the characters at every third character, it ended up creating 10 new columns, and all of them keep the same name as the original column, only with the number to identify each column that was created based on the original column. Let me remove the last steps. Let's try another one. By position. Splitting a column based on positions is different from splitting it based on the number of characters as we just did. The difference is basically that when you're using split by positions, the column is not really going to be split. In my opinion, this resource was supposed to be not in the split column button, but here in on the transform tab on the extract button. Because when we talk about extracting data in Power Query, we are referring to the data that is going to remain. So the data that I extract from a column in Power Query is not the data that is going to disappear. It's the data that is going to remain. So in this case, in my opinion, splitting by positions has more to do with extracting values than splitting a column, because as you can see, for example, if I want to split the same column from starting the 5th position, and again, let's take Australia as an example. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positions. The column was supposed to be split between the T and the second A. Between the A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, it was supposed to be split between the R and the A. But if I click OK, you will see what's going to happen. Okay, actually, the column was not split. I only extracted everything after the 5th position. This is an important distinction between using the split column button based on the number of characters and positions. When you use number of characters, your column will actually be split into 2 or 3 or whatever, 10 new columns. But when you use by positions, it's not actually splitting your column. It is just extracting all the values that are beyond the position you chose. Be careful, and you can also, let me again remove the last steps, and you don't have to use only one single position. You can also extract the characters that are between positions X and Y. For example, if I want to extract again, using Australia as an example, I'm going to use position 2 and separated by a comma, 2 and 5 as the separators. So I will get all the characters between the second and fifth position. In this case, it would be S, T, and R will be extracted. Let's hit OK, and STR. So just like I said, it's the interval between the positions you chose. Again, I will remove the last steps and let's try. This one is pretty easy, by lowercase to uppercase, which means every time you are changing from uppercase to lowercase, it's going to be a splitting point. In Australia, for example, you will have a splitting point between A and U. Well, it didn't work. I know why. Let me just correct it. The information I was supposed to be using this one by uppercase to lowercase. So this is when I start with an uppercase and change to lowercase. If I use this one, so between A and U, in this case, is going to be the splitting point. There you go. And I'm keeping the data in two new columns, but in this case, I'm not extracting only part of the text. I'm just splitting it into two different columns. Now let's try the same idea for, and I did something wrong here. I must have deleted an extra step that I shouldn't have, but it's okay. It's not going to be a problem for our example. And this choice right here, by digits to non-digits, this is applicable to the first column. For example, in this row 12, I have 1021B. Between 1 and B is where I have a change between a digit and a character, and you can understand the digit here as a number and a character as text. So the same goes for row 14. Between 3 and C, I have a change between a digit and a character, and I can use this as a splitting point by digits to non-digit, which is supposed to be a character. And there you go, and I'm keeping the letters in the second column and only the numbers in the first column. I will remove, and now by non-digits to digits, it's just the opposite. You can figure it out. The group by button, this group by button, we have studied in detail this button when we in our lesson on grouping. If you haven't watched this video, this is a very important concept, and in that lesson we not only discussed the concept of grouping, but we also discussed this button, this grouping button, and we learned how to use it in detail. Selecting data type, we have seen this before. Using first row as headers, it's the same as here. Use first row as headers in the transform tab. We already know how to work, how to use this button. Now let's use the replace values. This one is very important. For example, again, in the location column, we have some typos in this column. For example, uniter states, it wasn't supposed to be United States, but United States. And I can use the replace values button to correct this kind of error. Let me click replace values, and the value to find is the value that I want to correct. In this case, I want to correct uniter and replace it with united, and click OK. There you go. I have the right names where it was supposed to be united. I have united now, replacing uniter. And let me just check. For example, New Zealand, it was to be New Zealand. Let's correct it. I will replace Ne, and this is case sensitive. Okay, so you need the Y to be uppercase, just like the incorrect value that is on in your cell. You have to make it very specific and case sensitive. Replace it with new. There you go. Now it's right. And France is wrong too, so I want to replace France. Look, if I use France lowercase, it's written F-R-N-A-N-C-E. France. If I want to replace it with the correct name, France, click OK. It didn't work. Okay, it didn't work because I wrote France in lowercase. It was to be uppercase. Let's try it now. It is correct. Okay, replace values is very easy. We won't see merge queries and append queries or combine files. We won't see any of this in this lesson. We will see it carefully in another video. Manage parameters is a little bit more advanced. We'll see this in the advanced course. Data set source settings, again, this is not complicated, but we will see it in one of the next lessons. And in this little group, enter data, this is for entering data manually, and we have a specific lesson in this course. A few videos ago, we had a lesson teaching you how to insert data manually in Power Query. You can refer back to that video. And recent sources, this is just a list of the files you used recently, you loaded recently in Power Query. And the new source is just a way to import new datasets. I can select another file from Excel or CSV. Let me import the CSV file for this class. I will click text in CSV. This is another version of the same file I'm using in this lesson, only it's a CSV file instead of an Excel file, and I'm going to import it. Same way we did with all other files. And again, so this new source button is just a way to import new tables, new queries to your Power Query project. In this case, I'm not using this. I'm just going to delete it. I just wanted to show you how to do it, how to use the new source button. And again, I can use databases and other sources, the web, or everything we learned in previous videos, all the sources we can use to import data in Power Query. Okay, it looks like we covered most of the buttons on the Home tab. Of course, a few of them will be covered in the advanced course. Let's move on to the Transform tab, and then you can see that a few of the buttons here are the same as in the Home tab. For example, the Group By button is the same one as here on the Home tab. The Use First Row as Headers is the same as this button here, Use First Row as Headers. Look, Split Columns is the same too. Data type, if you need to select the data type, it's the same button as here, data type. Then we come to transpose, reverse rows, count rows. We will see these in a specific lesson soon. We have used the detect data type button in previous lessons. The rename button is the same button for renaming columns. It's the same basically as double clicking any of the column headers. The replace values button, it's the same as here, replace values. Only there's a little difference in the transform tab because the replace values has a second choice. It has a second option, which is replace errors. Let's see an example of this. If you saw that the first column is basically numbers, but these three cells in row 12, 14, and 15, they have letters. If I try to change the data type to numbers, let's say whole numbers, I will get an error because as I had letters in these cells, Power Query is not able to change and transform those letters in numbers, and I will get an error. So what if I want to replace all the errors at the same time? And of course, I don't necessarily, when I have errors in a column, it doesn't necessarily mean that all the errors are the same. I could have multiple different errors occurring in the same column. These three errors happen to be the same problem because I had numbers mixed with text, and then when I tried to change the data type into number, Power Query wasn't able to do it and returned an error. But I could also have many different types of errors happening in the same column, and regardless of the type of error, I could just replace all errors. I'll click replace errors, and I could replace them all with some value. And in this case, let me just pick a random number, and all the errors will be replaced with the same value. That's important to say. You won't be able to change with this choice here. With this option, you won't be able to change each error to a different number. They all will be replaced with the same number. Be careful about it. To use the fill button, let us split the location column again. I'm going to split it by delimiter. Power Query has seen that my delimiter is a semicolon. I'll just hit OK. Let me do some more cleaning. Let me remove all the rows that have a no value. All the rows that have one or more no values, I'm going to remove them. Like I said before, be careful, because in this case, I'm just using a file for as an example. This file doesn't really mean a lot. It's just to show you how to use all the resources in Power Query. In the real world, when you are using real data, removing a row that has a no in one of the columns could be dangerous, because when you remove the entire row, maybe in one of the columns or two or more of the columns, even if it's no, maybe in another column, you will have important data. Again, be careful about it. In this case, it's just an example, so I will remove any row that has that is no in any of the columns, just to make my table more consistent. I'll do the same here, and there you go. Now the table looks well organized. I just need a name for this column. I'm going to call it count, unit count. And this column right here, I don't really need it, right? There are some random numbers that I don't really need, so I'm going to remove this column. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this column using the choose columns button, and column 3, I will uncheck it, and there you go, it's gone. And you can see that in this, I will rename this column as country, this one as continent. Now you can see that I have blank cells, and there are two things I needed to notice. The first thing is that these blank cells, they were supposed to have the same value, the same information as in the closest upper cell. For example, Canada was supposed to be North America, United States was supposed to be North America, and Brazil, Uruguay, well, Brazil was supposed to be South America, Uruguay too, but Australia and New Zealand was supposed to be Oceania. So if I just move and copy South America downwards, I'm going to have a problem here. It's going to be wrong, but we can fix it later. I want to show you that we can use on the transform tab, we can use the fill button to copy every value downwards till the next non-blank cell. If I click down, I'm going to copy all the values down. If I click up, I'm going to copy it up. It makes more sense in this case to copy it down. But if I click down at this point, nothing's going to happen. That's going to happen because this button will only fill blank cells with the content of the next upper cell that is not blank. But like I said in the previous video, if you have a cell that looks totally blank, if it looks totally blank, it is not totally blank. When a cell in Power Query is actually blank, you will read no, N-U-L-L. If you don't have a no in the cell, it means it's not empty. There are white spaces, and white spaces are read by Power Query as characters. So what I'm going to do to solve this problem, I'm going to use the Format button and select Trim. The Trim option will remove any white spaces that I have before the text or after the text. The spaces in the middle will not be affected, but the ones before and after will be removed. And we can see that in some cells we do have white spaces. We can see the white spaces after each text, but we can see the ones before because it affects the way the text is aligned. So I'm just going to click Format and Trim. Okay, you saw that some of the words were moved properly. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the replace values, and I will replace blank with no. It has to be lowercase. I'm going to replace anything that is in these apparently blank cells, and I'm going to replace it with no. There you go. Now I know these cells are actually blank, and now I can fill it down. I know I still have some inconsistent data. For example, Australia and New Zealand are not in South America. Of course, there are ways to correct it. I don't want to approach that right now because this is going to be a topic for another lesson, but I only wanted to show you that you can copy your text down using the fill or down or up using the fill button, as long as the rows that are receiving the new data are null. The unpivot columns, we will study it when we study transposing and reversing rows. The move button is very easy. You select a column that eventually you want to move. You could just drag it anywhere you want, but you could also say select the country and move the column right. In this case, you can only go right, or move it left, or move it to the end of the column, or move it back to the beginning of the table. Convert to list, we're going to see this in the advanced course. Format, we can change every character in a selected column to lowercase or to uppercase, or to capitalize each word, so only the first letter in each word will be capitalized. Or we've seen the trim button. The clean button is going to be useful for characters that come from different programming languages that are not recognized by Power Query, and that could be a problem in your data set. So you can just remove it, and you can add a prefix, for example, country space, and then this is going to be added before each text. Or you can add a suffix, okay, and you have to use a white space in the beginning. There you go, very easy. The extract button is somewhat similar to the button for splitting columns. The logic is the same, so you can extract, and again, the content that will be extracted is the content that will remain in the column and not the one that is going to disappear. So if I click the length, I'm going to extract the character count of the column. It will count the number of characters in the column. This could be very useful when you're writing functions. It is actually useful. We will see probably examples in the future. And I could also extract the first n characters. For example, country, and has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 characters. I can just remove the word country, or I could extract, instead of the first characters, the last characters. It works the same. If I select the two last characters, it's going to return me only okay. And I can extract a range. For example, I want the characters starting from the 5th character, and from there I want, beginning on the 5th character, I want the next 4 characters. And there you go. And again, before the delimiter or after the delimiter or between delimiters, I'm going to pick the text before the delimiter. Well, actually, I want to remove only the names of the countries. So I'm going to remove everything that is before the last space, white space, which is before the OK. So I'm going to use the text before the delimiter, and my delimiter is going to be a white space. So I'm just inserted a white space. And in the advanced options, I have to tell Power Query that I want to count from the end, starting at the end, starting on the right, and the numbers of delimiters to skip. I don't want to skip any delimiters. I want to use the very same delimiter from the end. I will click OK, and I kept everything before the delimiter. And now I'm going to use the text after the delimiter. In this case, again, it's the first white space. And in the advanced options, it is right. I want to count it from the start of the input, and I don't want to skip any white spaces. I will click OK, and there you go. But let me show you just another example. If, for example, I wanted to remove the content in the second and use the second white space, I would just click extract text after the delimiter, and in this case, my delimiter will be white space, but there is 1 and 2 white spaces in this case, as I'm using the space in the middle. So I have to skip the first white space, and then my split point will be before the S. Okay, there you go. Of course, it affected the other columns, the other rows too. When you're doing any kind of transformation, you have to be mindful of the effect on the entire column. I am just using simple examples to show you what each of the buttons do. We already saw the statistics button. I have to use it. I have to select a numeric column. In this case, let me select this trans underscore ID. It's a numeric column. And then now I can use the options in this button. We have already seen this before, so I'm not going over this in this class. The same with the standard button. Well, actually, there are a few things that I want to show in the standard button as well as in the scientific button. We will see that in another lesson. And there's a lot of other cool things in this group. So we're going to discuss this in a specific lesson. And date and time, we've already worked on that in a previous class. Okay, so I believe that's enough for this lesson. I hope you like this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. This is very important to keep us motivated to keep making this kind of video. And see you in the next lesson.